Good morning and good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to this learning session on how we engage and support governments in shaping AI for public value. As you know, it is no surprise. AI is everywhere. And a few weeks ago, we already heard from colleagues in 6 country offices what it is that governments are asking them and what are some of the implications for UNDP. We're going to build on this today and do a deeper dive into some of the emerging trends and risks and opportunities in adopting AI in public policy. That part will be presented by Sri Ganesh, and it's based on our latest research and our engagement with you all in the country offices. After that, Alex will ask the RRs of Sri Lanka and Malaysia, Azusa and Edward, some tough questions on how they're leading the efforts in this area. We're grateful to both of them for making the time, and you will also see that both cases show different approaches, which reflects the political realities and the ambitions of each context. So stay tuned for that. I'll say one last word before I'm going to hand over to Sri Ganesh. We know that the area of AI and development policy is super rapidly evolving, and we're always doing our best to synthesize the analysis and learnings and to share that with you regularly. And you probably have a lot of questions, and we'll do our best to dedicate some time for it at the end. But we know from experience that time is often short, so we recommend you already engage actively in the chat so that we can include your questions and comments as we go and make sure we answer most of them. Thank you so much. With that, I'm going to hand over to Sri Ganesh.
Thank you. And thank you, colleagues, for joining us today. I'm just the sort of starter, and I think the more interesting conversation will come a little later. But just to set the context right, I think we all know that, AI is everywhere right now in Asia Pacific. We have been engaging with country offices, also scanning the region, talking to other partners and stakeholders in the region. And the purpose of today is to start to think about how do we move from reacting to also helping shape AI in Asia Pacific and specifically in the countries that each of you work in. For context, right now we are in a movement, we are in a time where the region of Asia Pacific is vast, with disparate realities in terms of their readiness and their the evolution of AI, and it is moving fast but very unevenly. One of the two sort of key things here is that that we are noticing is that the desire to move fast, the policy ambition is outpacing what their current sort of institutional capability and coordination levels are at the country level, including safeguards. There's also large conversations around what is the global model that we need to sort of essentially replicate, but these can differ quite greatly from local realities and capacities, and we need to figure out what are the sort of intermediate and transitionary pathways that we need to take, so that the key challenge that we're trying to deal with in the region is how do we act effectively, inclusively, and safely. And this is where sort of UNDP can help countries help navigate the challenges ahead. What are the signals that we are receiving from the region? This is a reflection of our conversations with a lot of you from the country offices, as well as other stakeholders and research that we've commissioned in the region. One is the aspect of there's a lot of acceleration without alignment. There are rapid pilots happening on things from chatbots for government service delivery and different types of AI applications be it in health or agriculture. Unfortunately, when you sort of, a lot of AI depends on foundational digital transformation work that is yet to happen to a mature level in a lot of countries. So we still are faced with weak data foundations, fragmented, low interoperability of systems, and poor metadata. For example, right, we have, one of the countries that we work in Nepal, there are these large conversations around, what should a data exchange be, while at the same time trying to roll out public service delivery through digital, and not actually grasping the opportunity that the public service delivery work that the government is doing can create for creating the back end sort of systems. And UNDP is helping to navigate and connect these dots inside the country. Of course, we see institutional fragmentation as well, with agencies working in silos. And UNDP has a unique advantage in having working with multiple agencies on the ground, and can provide that connective tissue to sort of limit to increase shared learning and minimize silos. Um, Frankly, at this point, we do see that there's a lot of pressure to move fast, be it on the countryside, be it on the donor side, but the results in terms of what is sustainable seem a little shallow at this point. Um, and one key consideration, and something that UNDP is uniquely positioned to aid governments, is that there's a capability asymmetry. The global models are racing fast ahead. The reality in terms of institutional readiness and capability, not just about skills, but capability to absorb AI, which sort of also gets into issues of sort of how do you embed digital and AI effectively into ongoing policy systems. That sort of disconnect that is sort of impeding the growth of increased effective utilization of AI. So the risk today isn't about being left behind by AI, but really about how do we effectively shape it collectively in these countries. And this is particularly important for public sector, because public sector is about legitimacy. It's not the same as private sector. Private sector, if something goes wrong, it's about lost business opportunity. In the public sector, it is about a loss of trust and legitimacy. So we need to actually pay particular attention to the public sector and where AI can effectively be integrated. So we at our unit almost think of this as that AI is really about a public capability rather than just a technology. So as governments have, there are very few countries that haven't sort of started to think about AI in the Asia Pacific region, and they're moving in sort of different speeds, as well as starting at different points on the ground. Based on the work that we've learned from you that you all are doing in the country office, as well as sort of our own sort of research and conversations with partners, there are 5 key considerations that we see are important for governments as they are going on this journey. They are not necessarily starting at the same place, nor are they necessarily going in a sort of an order in terms of these, but we somehow or the other, these 5 considerations will need to be considered if we are to make sure that AI is there, leveraged sustainably over the long term to improve developmental outcomes. One of those is, and quite a key one, is what is the shared vision in terms of what's the North Star that the country is trying to achieve by the use of AI, which is deeply connected to the kinds of developmental outcomes. So one is around, the shared vision and coordination that the North Star that the country aspires to, where again, UNDP is uniquely placed to help shape that conversation collectively. The second is how do we leverage government as a policy leader, right? That can lead by example and show how for the private sector as well as the citizens about how AI can be leveraged, responsibly used, and procured, and can influence the way that the private sector in these countries and the economic ecosystem that functions around AI in their respective countries, so that it happens in an ethical and inclusive manner. The third is around institutional readiness, right? There is a need to fix foundational components required for AI, from data systems as well as capabilities, skills, and procurement frameworks. Fourth is around the use of learning to scale, because a lot of this cannot be taught in a classroom environment. That we will develop, we will have a capacity building workshop, and then you're set to go. You have to ingrain these, embed these sort of things, and there's a lot of learning that needs to be learning by doing that needs to happen. And very importantly, how do we make sure that governments do this and are able to hold on to the trust channels, so making sure that transparency and citizen engagement are core to the work that they do when leveraging AI. So what we are going to hear today is from two countries that have been doing pioneering work, country offices that have been doing pioneering work around AI in the Asia-Pacific region, from Sri Lanka and Malaysia. And we're looking forward to a very fruitful discussion between them and looking to learn from our side, from their experiences. Different pathways, but one shared goal, that we have institutions that will learn and build trust together. Thank you.
With that, we would love to start with Azusa from the Sri Lanka country office, if that's all right.
Yes. Hi. Good morning, colleagues. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. The considerations that Sri Ganesh outlined will very much resonate with our experiences. So let me go straight into our example. So in Sri Lanka, we have had, as is the case with many country offices already, multiple digital projects running since early 2000 and so forth. Then in 2020, around the time of the digital governance formation, we have started supporting a number of foundational analytical work for the government, particularly using the corporate instruments, digital maturity assessment, digital readiness assessment. These instruments really allowed us to have a foot at the door, also gain credibility vis-a-vis the government institutions that are beginning to think through their digital transformation journey. Then, I don't know if somebody's stopped. Then we started also building our digital portfolio, and AI came in as part of our long-standing partnership with the government in shaping their digital transformation journey. Just to say, when we had the new government last year, it came with a very clear mandate. It has a majority in the parliament, but the people's mandate to curb corruption and improve public sector service delivery efficiency. And digitalization was seen as one of the key enablers. Therefore, it became one of the 3 top priorities of the current government. And it really gave impetus to the digital economy development drive. And since UNDP was already there, it was sort of a natural transition for us moving into the AI space, because the president himself became the head of the newly established Ministry of Digital Economy, which propels the economic recovery from the country's insolvency status from 3 billion economy to 15 billion. Then we had the Chitra Social Innovation Lab, which is anchored under Prime Minister's office and the UNDP, which gave that safe space for various institutions to work through us on the whole of the government, the whole of society, digital transformation work. So AI came as part of a long-standing partnership in the digital ecosystem. So it didn't come as a standalone thing at the time of AI strategy design. So just going back to the AI framework for the government. So in 2023, the previous government, under the leadership of the president, started the formation of the committee to look into the AI strategy. And because we already had a footprint in the digital ecosystem, we are given a seat at the table, the only development partner to be given a voice at the thinking forum. And we also conducted the IRA, the AI readiness assessment, again using the corporate instrument to give us that intellectual credibility And we also coordinated. I think one of the points was the importance of coordinating various institutions. So we have actually organized regular AI learning sessions drawing from the UNDP's network of global expertise, both from government, private sector, and also our CDO, to really give that boost to show that we have the intellectual and technical muscle to contribute. We also use the IRA's insights to inform the white paper on AI, which is now being used as a foundation for the draft national AI strategy. And the AI strategy, the government hopes to finish it before the end of the year to make sure it matches with the fast evolving global and regional good practices. So although the government has changed, the foundational work we have started through IRA continue to live, and we continue to have a space in that space. The next slide, please. Just to say that the importance of having a vision and a strategic direction. So we need to remember that the AI came out of this digital economy blueprint paper, which is very much about driving digital economy and propelling economic growth in the post-economic crisis situation in Sri Lanka. So it has a very strong economic focus, and also curbing corruption by bringing more transparency and accountability in public sector. And this government being very much focused on vulnerable segments of the society and uplifting them out of poverty. Social inclusion is also a very strong pillar of that vision. And so in a way, UNDP's safeguards, inclusion, equity, people-centered AI, our narrative really matches with that of the government, which makes it very easy for us to forge that partnership. I know it's not always the case, but I have to say also the recent launch of the HDR, which focused on AI for people-centered human development. It really resonated with the vision of the government, and we went in full force to use that as part of our advocacy efforts. And I think people-centered AI adoption has become almost like a buzzword in every policy forum. And I think we have played a big role in that space. And I very much look forward to the regional study, which we're going to be using very strategically to enhance our credibility in that space. So when it comes to the three pillars of the strategy, just say the pillar one on foundational enablers talk about data ecosystems, skills development, infrastructure research, and public awareness. This very much goes back to the earlier presentation by Ganesh, saying that the ambition is running very fast, but when it comes to skills, not only in the AI engineering sector, right, but in the public sector to embrace and to make use of it, and for the public to be aware, to avoid the further widening of the AI literacy gap. These are greatest concerns of the government. So we are actually working with the ADB and other partners to see how we can fill those growing gaps to make sure AI works for the most vulnerable segment of the society, given that Sri Lanka is one of the fastest aging societies in Asia Pacific. And there's great concern that the elderly population might be left behind in terms of accessing services if this digital and AI literacy part is not addressed in a timely manner. And the second segment talks about AI in public services, agriculture, health, education, and SMEs. So it's really deep diving into some sectoral AI adaptation. And the last part is governance and ethics, frameworks for responsible AI development and public participation. So we see great potential in working with other UN agencies such as UNESCO, which has very robust guidelines on AI ethics. And so we are progressively partnering with them so that they can impart knowledge, but we are also helping in integrating in our day-to-day programming implementation to operationalize the digital economy blueprint. Next slide, please. So top priorities for our country program. So when we look at the AI landscape, the vision is big, but in terms of the interest and eagerness of partners to come into play, it's a crowded space. World Bank and ADB, both of them are rolling out 100+ million digital loan programs, and AI is an essential part of it. The Gates Foundation is very much a big player here. So when we really think about what value we can add as UNDP, we have to be strategic. And the fact that we have a Chitara Social Innovation Lab anchored in Prime Minister's office allows us to bring different agencies together. We are based here, and we also have progressive thinking and tools around ethics and people-centered AI adoption. So we are very much focusing on providing that sort of technical support through a support to the unit called the DESU, which is anchored directly under the Prime Minister, the President's Chief Technical Advisor, who is driving the implementation of the digital economy blueprint. By having this partnership with the government, we are looking at as part of a government financing partnership through digital economy ministry. We are actually beefing up the capabilities of that unit. It's going to be 30+ thought leaders and the practitioners to drive that implementation of the blue economy. But by managing that unit, we are also consolidating international partner support and being at the heart of the national thinking and the implementation agenda. So it's very important to have just to have a seat around the table, but have people embedded in the centralized authorized agency to be in that day-to-day conversation and to bring in UNDP's expertise in that mix. It's very important. So our focus is very much on safeguards, but I have to say, this is an evolving new area. I think we are also exploring as we go on the government part too, and I think it goes back to the earlier presentation, when the capabilities in the institutions that we work with are limited and they need to be nurtured. And the topic is changing so fast, we are sort of jointly exploring at the same time, right? So it's a very different type of programming, and we have to remain agile and open and also have calculated risks to see where our investments would take us. So we invested our core resources and some of the program resources in this DESU unit with the hope that we can unlock other financing, especially from the ADB and the Gates Foundation and the private sector. So it's really waiting and see, but we see it's a worthwhile calculated risks to take and hoping that it's going to unlock some of the new investments coming into that space. And the next part is very much on capabilities. So this is something we're also coordinating with the innovation team, FRIN and so forth, through our public sector transformation initiative. The IT officers in governments are very much the conventional IT officers. They're not the obvious counterparts to talk about the AI strategy and the forward-looking safeguards. So we have to make sure that we work on the institutional capabilities in parallel to make sure that the whatever policy prerogative we put forward will be absorbed. Over to you. Thank you.
Super. Thank you so much, Azusa. Before I hand over to Ed, one thing is, colleagues, please mute your mics, right? Because we, of course, can do it manually, but we don't like to be dictators. So please do it yourselves. And I would like really thanks so much, Azusa, for your reflection, right? It's a long journey that the country office has gone through. It was going through political and fiscal tumult with the change of the government. You maintained continuity, right? You stayed focused. You kept on connecting your digital initiatives. You used the Chitra Lab as your policy infrastructure, both to have direct access and channel to communicate to the government, but also being able to respond and to provide that support, and in a way maintain the silence of political stability while the government was changing. And also you were in a pole position to immediately connect to the new emerging government priorities around accountability, anti-corruption, and seeing as digital is an enabler after all, right? It's not what government wants from us is just technical solutions. It's the way how it can be reasonably applied to achieve their policy agenda. So thanks so much for this. And we will, of course, in discussion, we will return to some of the points. And you mentioned you we're not able actually to cover everything, but there will be a moment to unpack it a bit. Now, I'm super happy to move eastwards from Colombo to Putrajaya, and unless you and Kale add, but really would love to hand over to you for your remarks.
Alex, thanks for the warm words. Now I'm in Putrajaya. I'll start by thanking BRH for its support and assistance on a set of issues that really coalesce around two things. One is the improvement of delivering services through AI, and the second is the governance of AI, and that's really how it's played itself out here. So I'll start with the thank you. Just to remind everyone that this office does cover, and it is a piece of trivia, we do cover 3 countries, Singapore, Brunei, and Malaysia. And the reason I raise that is that this is emerging as a hot topic in all 3 countries in very different ways, but coalescing ultimately around 2 things: the use of AI for growth and the ethical use of AI in its interface with delivering services and managing populations and governance processes. So I'll just focus on Malaysia in this one. I'll start by saying that Malaysia got out on the front foot about 5 years ago with AI. I think it recognized the potential, and it's in part driven by a few realities. Malaysia is one of the largest producers of semiconductors in the world. It's number 6, so it's a big player in that particular area of IT production. But also it shares a border with Singapore, and a lot of the capital and IT headquartering of IT in Singapore, IT services, OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, they're looking to spill into Malaysia, partly for purposes of labor, partly for infrastructure, and partly because government is forward-leaning. So what government has done as a policy posture has really adopted a whole of nation, whole of economy approach on how it manages AI. And really, the important thing to remember with government is that they are, 1, focused on using AI as a catalyst, 2, they're cautious about how it's being used, and 3, they're looking at deeply integrating it as a tool across government for a few things, not just internal efficiencies within the bureaucracy, but also, more importantly, for improving and lifting the floor, I should say, on the delivery of services, particularly to rural and remote communities, the most marginalized. And I'll get to that in the next slide. But just to give you a sense here, that slide, that gives you a bit of an overview of where they're heading. They have got a national AI office on the, I think we've got a slide coming up. So there's just a slide there. I've got 2, I think, for this presentation. So it'll give you a sense. They've had a roadmap in place since 2021. They have not only ASEAN-wide, but also region-wide and global ambitions. That's attracting a lot of investment. Microsoft are opening data and cloud centers here. OpenAI is negotiating with government, as are Google, for greater access to the labor force, to infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. On the question of broader focus, you'll see that they have got various parts of government deal with digital, and in Malaysia you don't see a great separation between AI and inclusiveness on digital issues, and really the focus is about getting more people involved and participating in the digital economy and using AI as a tool for that. There is an AI office. We do work very closely with them. There's also a number of other organs of state and government that deal with inclusion, index, and monitoring the use of not just AI, but digital uptake across the economy and how that improves efficiencies or reduces barriers to entry for investment. Just next slide, please. Okay, so just in terms of our work, it really interfaces around 2 focal points programmatically. The first is on what we generally call well-being, but very much social protection. And that's being led by the Prime Minister's office. And I think what we find in Malaysia is that the leadership on the use of digital tools and AI is being led from the highest levels. And that's been very, very important for us because, 1, it's ensured that we partner with the Prime Minister's office. 2, it means you have the immediate participation of all ministries in some way, shape, or form. So there's a particular weight that's afforded to the discussion and dialogue on AI and the use of digital tools to improve social well-being. UNDP is drafting the National Social Protection Policy, and we are working with various parts of government. We've also crowded in financing not only from government on this, but also from the Australian government as well, who we're about to sign a financing agreement on, which will look at the use of AI on social protection and its use in Parliament, both as a tool to improve the efficiency of Parliament, but also as parliamentary oversight too. And that's one of the areas of particular focus for government, is the governance of AI. The term we use here, and the term that's used often, particularly in the three countries, is the ethical use of AI. And there's a lot of concern in this part of the world. So the posturing of all three governments, particularly in Malaysia, is to try and get ahead of the curve on this. So you'll see that the first part of that is very much, of our engagement is very much around social protection. That's on disability, what we call the gig workers here, which will be familiar to many of you, and looking at this phenomenon of an aging demographic in the care economy. Fundamental locus of discussion is ensuring that the right resources go to the right people. And this is very much an ASEAN issue. It's very much being led by Malaysia in its year of chairing of ASEAN. And it is something that Singapore is signaling that it will take up in 2027 when it's chairing as well. Okay, next slide. Okay. On the back of all of this, we're working with other parts of government, of course. There is the Digital Inclusion Index. We've leveraged Track 2 funds for that. It's a good example of where that's opening doors. That's also come at a time when Malaysia's just issued its next 5-year development plan, number 13. It's just had its 68th anniversary of independence. So there's an entire architecture that is looking to integrate that deeply across government operations and policy. Importantly, we're seeing that the use of AI, the use of digital tools, and the question of digital inclusion is featuring as a general point of discussion between government, private sector, civil society, and development partners. We are extraordinarily well placed in Malaysia context for two reasons. One is we are trusted as a convener, and if we were working on these sorts of issues very early on in the. Let's keep those mics mute, guys. Let's show a bit of courtesy, eh? So we're very much at the front foot on that. The second reason is that we have been able to convene partners and parties, and that in it has brought, not only from the Prime Minister's office down, but in fact, we have emerged as a leader. I guess the challenge for us is maintaining that position in the dialogue. There's three things we've been able to do. One is to convene disparate partners around the table and get them on the same page. The second is to demonstrate a number of pilots. This was all started with the ACLAB. I think ACLAB in Malaysia has been a huge success, and we've kept that on as a 2.0 model in a different guise with a different sort of label. And the third is that we've been able to deploy the right technical expertise at the right time. That is in part from BRH, in part local. There are a number of local providers that we're partnering very closely with. And ultimately, that has brought a degree of confidence in our capability, and we'll continue to push along with that. The other thing just to mention is that we are the first international development partner to be invited to the ASEAN AI Safety Network. That looks like it will be announced in the leaders meeting on the weekend as a key initiative. I think the question about reducing barriers to entry is an interesting one. ASEAN is founded on a principle of self-respect or mutual respect, not integration like the EU. So we'll get to this a little bit later in the discussion, but I think there are a couple of pointers with Malaysia. I'll just finish by just summing up, saying one, we are very well placed to take this forward, but we don't take it all for granted or any of it for granted. Two, the leadership from government has been paramount in driving this along. And three, in our context at least, and certainly in all three countries, the sense of AI, the governments are seized with this idea of how it becomes part of the ecosystem, and our value add has been to work with government to shape, build, and think about what that ecosystem looks forward in terms of the political economy, the social impacts, and also the economic benefit. Alex, I will leave it there.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Thanks so much, Ed, and really inspiring to see and hear from you how Malaysia country office was able to navigate and in a way, if I can surf, all right, the very fast evolving landscape in Malaysia, and which is also very challenging in terms of being up to speed and being relevant for the government, given not just the ambition that Malaysia has regionally or globally in terms of AI, but also in terms of the investment that are being made across. And we know multiple examples, and the National AI Institute is one of the few of those investments. But at the same time, I also see a story in both in Sri Lanka and in Malaysia where UNDP's positioning on digital more broadly, but then on AI, is very much also linked to some cumulative progress done over the years, right? So for Sri Lanka, that was a strong investment in the public sector innovation and reform, where digital and AI have come play a strong role. For Malaysia, I remember strong focus on the social inclusion. There was the program around bottom 14, previous governments. It stays as an important policy imperative. And country office was able quickly to look into the way, what are the implications for digital? What is next in terms of AI? But I also see the particular role that both of your offices have been playing. You said UNDP is a trusted convener. UNDP is a kind of a partnership and I would say platform builder around particular policy initiatives. May I ask you how you combine on one side this building cumulatively credibility of UNDP in AI space, which is not given, right? This is quite a new topic for many development organizations, and at the same time being there in a very crowded space, right? Because there are other partners, not just funders. There are other partners who are often competing, who often have perhaps less of principles, I would say, but maybe much stronger coffers to offer to the government, and which often kind of trumps quality or of what we can offer. Can I ask you a bit to reflect on that? How you build that credibility, how you navigated different underwater stones in this, and how you managed to position country offices where they are. And I hope, Azusa, it's okay if I reverse the order and first ask at this time and then turn over to you.
Thanks, Alex. It's a great question. I think just a few observations. We talked about this a few weeks ago. From this, the AI space is being driven by commercial applications, and inherently that limits the public dialogue because it's new technology and everyone is trying to monetize it. I think it's fair to say governments are not confused about AI, and they clearly use it, they clearly know what it means and its potential, and they're clearly talking to each other. And this is an important point. And we shouldn't forget that part of our opportunity is being a member-driven organization. We're able to bring governments together to have a separate dialogue. But what we find in this context is government is coming to us almost as an honest broker, where we have a headland view and we're able to say, this is the global experience, this is the regional experience. This is what works for you, this is what doesn't. So that's the first thing. The second is we have a consistent narrative that AI, you need to engage with it, but you need to engage with it on your terms. So in Malaysia, for example, there is the latest thinking is that and in fact, they've already started developing their own large language models for Malaysia because they recognize that, AI, they're commercial products ultimately. The interest is making something that's not only multilingual, not only has a translation capability, but actually relates a bit more to the context and the experience of Malaysia. And we're seeing the same in Singapore, and Brunei is a lot more cautious for a range of political and social reasons. The third thing I'd say is that we have been very consistent in what our value add is. And our value add is very much about the translation of the technology into a public good or a social benefit. It's not been a commercial application. It's not been to make money. It's not been to try and convince someone to invest in us more than they should or should not do. Rather, it's to say, on an aging demographic with a very poorly regulated aged care system, we are able to work with you to identify the potential that AI offers to offer a first level protection for aging people in welfare or nursing homes, whatever the case may be. So the thing for us, we've not tried to compete with tech. Rather, we've tried to bring our social, political economy lens and say, this is a tool. This is how we can help you use it. These are things that we think you want to do over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years because you're telling us that your aspirations are to be a high-income country. And we look at the proxies. Malaysia is an open trading economy. Its trade to GDP is 134%. To give you a measure, my own country, Australia, is 126, and they're both considered among the most open economies in the world. So there is a nervousness from government, but they're also seized with the opportunity, and they see it very much as an economic driver of growth. I guess the opportunity for us is to remind them that that growth needs to be as broad as it possibly can, not for the top 10, not for the B20 as they see here, but also for everyone in that spectrum.
Thank you so much, Ed. Interesting also the kind of the conversation around honest broker. One of big questions that are often hanging behind us is the geopolitics of AI, right? It's highly geopoliticized, if I can say, right? There are different competing big players, and very interesting how Malaysia is trying to navigate that. And what is UNDP position? If we have time, we can reflect on that a bit, but maybe now we'll turn over to Azusa. Over to you. Sri Lanka is definitely quite a different context. And yeah, over to you.
Yeah, I think it's very different in a sense, the types and the nature and the volume of economy and the context, the political economic context is quite different. And when it comes to digitalization penetration in the public sector, right? It's nowhere. It's very at a different stage from Malaysia. So our operating context is different. But having said that, I don't know if the honest broker is the best term to describe, but obviously that us having this social innovation lab embedded in the Prime Minister's office and creating that safe space, a neutral space for stakeholders coming in has been a value addition for us. Also attracting government financing, right, to park some of the sort of engine room investments through us. If you look at the overall digital economy, digitalization investment space, we have World Bank, ADB coming in big numbers, Gates Foundation. We also have, of course, private sector coming in. But let us not forget that India plays a big role in introducing universal digital ID, which will be an important foundation for all the DPI work that we have been doing, right? So there are big players with big political influence, with big envelopes, right? So I don't think we should be competing, as Ed said. Our role is to really finding a niche and creating that safe space for the government to really continuously drive that consistent and also people-centered digital transformation and AI adoption. And I see from our side that there are a few areas we can really come in. One is looking at the capabilities, once again, capacities, not just the public institutions and the digital economy institutions with DESU, but really looking at the public awareness, right? Looking at more digital literacy, but AI literacy. And we also have a seat around the table for the Education Sector Reform Committee, which focuses on digital and education. So from that early childhood digital literacy, AI literacy perspective, we're very much also accompanying the national process. And we also work with universities and entrepreneurship institutions. One thing that I don't really hear this being debated is if you look at the AI sector, this is one of the most gender equalized right, sectors, meaning that unlike traditional programming space, engineer space, more women are coming into the space because if you build your AI literacy, you can actually exponentially grow your productivity in a business. And I think many progressive governments have realized the potential in using AI to enhance economic empowerment amongst women. But in Sri Lanka, that realization is still catching up. So in my conversation with the universities and high schools, how can we use AI and how can we empower girls and women with AI literacy so that they can actually be part of the labor force. In Sri Lanka, only 30+% of women participate in formal economy. So as part of the national poverty reduction agenda, bringing women to the formal economy is very important. And I think AI could be an enabler for many of the marginalized women. So that's sort of a parallel conversation we are having with the government. And also bringing all the partners, despite the fact that this is a very competitive space, we're in constant conversation with the big players, and they are willing to rally around the UNDP sort of facilitated forum to ensure coordination. So I think the government really looks at us as a trusted partner in ensuring coordination and optimization of resources from that perspective. And I want to really give credit to colleagues who have been driving this even before my time, which is the Social Innovation Lab, Fado, who's moving to Bhutan, and also my colleagues in Chitra Lab, but also all of you, right, in the DIT room and also CDO have been exceptionally helpful. Sometimes when we are surrounded by big players with other people flying in from Washington and Manila, right? It's important for us to also show that, yes, we have the knowledge and the expertise and capabilities, and you have been there throughout with us. And I think we have strategically and aggressively used your generous time and expertise. And you'll always be there for us. So many thanks. It's been a true team effort, but I am thinking in moving forward, we have to now moving into the AI application and sandboxing, because this government is not perhaps in the same space as others, in the sense that they haven't really progressively looked into AI adoption in all those sectors outlined in the blueprint. So now the next step is really to create that safe space, calculated risk price through Chitra Lab or other facility to show that it can be tested and tried and for scaling up, because the physical space is very tight. And we also bring in a lot of private sector secondees through this DSU to see also private sector partnership moving forward. But it's now time, the framework is being sort of conceptualized. It's time to really start showing application through sandboxing type facility. So that's where we are moving into, I hope. Back to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Azusa, also for your kind words. I'm just checking with Luisa how we're on time. And I feel like I would love to give maybe just 1 more minute each of you to add reflection before we kind of move over towards the questions in the chat. And what I really would like to ask you also, this question around capability, right, and the bottom 20 in Malaysia now. Is UNDP, what is the role of UNDP through programming and so forth to build AI literacy and capability that Azusa mentioned in those more remote villages? I mean, it's clear that KL and the kind of the bigger part of private sector, the system is super advanced and all that. What are we doing in Malaysia to support this bottom 20 AI uptake? And maybe Azusa, a question to you in terms of role that UNDP country office plays in intra-governmental coordination, right? Because often UNDP country office is doing as well this on horizontal topics like digital, like AI. You actually need to connect the dots across the government. And as you mentioned, those AI sandboxes, if you can perhaps share a couple of the tricks that Sri Lanka country office and Chitra Lab do to make sure that those dots are staying connected within the government on the AI-related topics. Thanks, and really, colleagues, asking you to be brief on this one, and we will hand over to audience's questions. Thank you so much. Okay, Azusa, this time it's you are the first.
Okay, good. Well, as I said, I think we are lucky, all the stars aligned because we have this facility, right? The Innovation Lab directly anchored in Prime Minister's office. So it was meant to be sort of a place to drive whole of the government, whole of the society initiatives. So digital AI naturally sits there. And we have also proven ourselves that we could ensure cross-institutional coordination through this very ambitious CRBS project that we are implementing with the WHO. This is the Civil Registry and Vital Statistics Initiative, engaging close to 24 institutions. It's like really hardening institutions around, looking at various massive data points. So the government has seen us in action. So I think it's really given that sense of comfort and trust to work through this institution. But again, when it comes to AI, we are learning as we go also, right? And how do we also build in the benchmarks for success for ourselves, right? We are investing, I think Ed is investing his track 2. I'm investing my track 1 and 2 also, right? And some of the donor resources through this DESU and other areas. But down the line, we have to start showing the dividends of these investments. And it's not easy when we don't have traditional KPIs built in, right? In a very fast emerging space. So it's really good that we are exchanging notes. But yeah, so cross-institutional coordination just comes naturally. The facility we have. Back to you, Ed.
Thanks, Azuz. I'll just underscore Azuz's point that none of the RRs are asking that AI be a KPI for us at all. Just very clear on that one. Look, just to summarize on the B20 question, Alex. So the B20, for those that are not familiar, is the bottom 20, as they call it in Malaysia. Look, a couple of points from us. So we've played a very strong role in raising awareness about... Just mute him, mate, mute him. Been a very strong role in raising awareness within government, but also more broadly across the country on the need to not leave them behind. And that plays into a broader economic narrative about wanting to pivot to high income status. So Malaysia is currently a UMIC. It has broad aspiration to reach high income status in the next 5 years. Second, we've worked very hard on policy coherence. So how does AI is not an end in of itself, it's a means for a better outcome. The question for us on the B20 and AI is really much around social protection, the use of AI as a tool to deliver better services, and the question about this digital inclusion work we're doing, which is really trying to demonstrate to government that you can identify what the genuine needs are and that you can shape where the resourcing should go as a response to genuine need, not necessarily because it's the latest craze or the latest fad or someone is taken up with being influenced by the sort of the next new thing. So that's where we would be on that, Alex.
Really fantastic. And, at BRH, and without diminishing our collective effort, including Sri Ganesh, there are interesting frameworks and lessons emerging, but what we are hearing from you is exactly the kind of the granularity of what is happening and what it takes in real life to achieve that UNDP's position, right? It's like culture eating strategy for breakfast, and you are showing how to leverage culture together with the strategy to achieve impact. Before I hand over to Louisa, we have quite a few RRs and DRRs on this call today. So I would really ask for a few volunteers maybe to reflect on from your perspectives, what are the biggest challenges in terms of meeting the demands from the government, and maybe what were the important, the most kind of promising steps you took for UNDP's positioning at the high level, reflecting also both on what Azuz and Ed mentioned in terms of Prime Minister Office engagement and so forth. It might be good to have some diverse perspective from across the world. So maybe we go south. Tui, I know you might wish to reflect. There was just an exchange today on AI in the Pacific. So maybe a few thoughts from you and on your engagement around the topic.
Thank you so much. Lovely to see you, colleagues. Bula from Fiji. Thank you so much for your presentations and reflections, Ed and Azusa. Lovely to see you all. We've been also in touch with the new hub. I guess it's called the AI Governance and Innovation, or AI Data and Innovation, with Laura. I don't know if you've somehow took forward all of your digital assessments in one way or the other. And then I know a number of countries have conducted the digital readiness assessments. And the Pacific office, the countries have also done that. The struggle, well, on the good news side, the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat, which is a political kind of platform, a body of the Pacific countries and the leadership, they have expressed strong interest to having kind of a series of high-level dialogues with PMs and also prime ministers and ministers of the Pacific countries on how different countries and the regions are dealing with overall AI governance for the public good. So it's a very underexplored theme in the Pacific, and we also do not have strong regulatory frameworks, even when it comes to digital. So AI is sort of like, out there, but I know it's, here as well. So that's one thing. The other one is, so it's really like facilitating dialogues and experience sharing and all of that using that Pacific Island Forum platform. The other one is specific needs of countries. So Fiji kind of being the hub for many of the Pacific countries, a lot of services end up being provided here in Fiji, including also banking and whatever else that you might think of, but also digital safety, security. A lot of scams have been happening here in the Pacific because of very poor regulatory kind of oversight frameworks. And I don't know if you've heard of this infamous eBay scam that I think resulted in like 5 billion, something crazy amount of Fijian dollars in loss. And then nobody got punished. So there is lower and lower trust of citizens in digital platforms because everyone is basically scared. And with a advent of the AI, there is a lot of pushback from cultural leaders, so the chiefs, and they're saying that they're using the image of the Pacific people for profit or for scams actually, and other things, right? So in these very uncertain times, how we are trying also to position our offer, of course, very much rooted in our existing governance projects, in a way that makes most practical sense and use for the. So I really appreciated listening to you, Ed and Azusa, and sometimes maybe we can at some point. I know everybody's very busy, but. Having a deep dive would be my request. Alex, back to you to really bring some of the countries together and then learn from each other, and then also share some of the expertise in the world of even more diminished I guess resources and opportunities. But thank you for this good conversation. Over.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dua. And then we will be speaking about some of the plans regionally to further support cross-country collaboration, but also some of the corporate investment that will be keep on coming. Hopefully, AI cannot produce financial resources yet, but hopefully we will get some ideas as well. I would like just to check if there are other colleagues from the countries so there are who would like to say a few words from their country's perspectives. I know Enrico is there. Angela, you are planning AI summit together with the Global Hub and the Indian government. Any other thoughts? We'd like to take them now. Otherwise, we will move on to the questions. Also knowing that Edward and Azusa perhaps have their schedules rubber stamped already. So not to take too much from them. Do we see any hands up? Otherwise, we will move on.
Nothing from my side. I'm happy to hear the questions.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you so much, Enrico. I'm handing over to my partners in crime, Louise and Sri Lanka.
Most questions are being answered in the chat. There was one on scaling from Akiko.
Yeah, I sort of mentioned,
Colleagues, we did our best to answer most questions in the chat, but if someone feels there's a follow-up question or something that hasn't been addressed, please, maybe if you could raise your hand so we can really make sure we take that question.
Yeah, and we didn't use ChatGPT to answer questions on the chat so that everyone is clear about it.
So please, if someone has any last comments or wants to make sure their specific question is addressed, if it hasn't, now is the time.
I think we've covered all the questions.
All right.
Okay, then we are almost on time. Thanks so much to Ed and Azusa for their intelligence, insights, passion, and time, of course, shared with all of us during this call. We took quite a lot of lessons. We obviously will be providing the summary, as always, after our webinars and key intel points. Those can be shared. We are standing here to help and to connect further. I would just like perhaps to emphasize three most important points that I would take away from here. AI and technology is not a magic. This is, as our strategic plan says, an enabler. I think Sri Lanka's and Malaysia's journey demonstrated it perfectly. Both in terms of how it actually you create credibility, knowledge, thought leadership in various policy areas, and where digital and AI actually come to boost and expand and scale much faster and bigger. Secondly, what is really important is UNDP being able to invest in what we would call a policy infrastructure, Chitra Lab. Various program teams in Malaysia country office allowed the country office to maintain political continuity, stability, and pursue the topics further on, even despite the policy and political changes. I would say the third one is retaining that value and image of us as honest brokers, impartial conveners, strategic conveners, whatever the term we use. I think it's so important to be seen like that from various partners, from the government, from development partners, or from the private sector. That's perhaps the value that gets us further, looking at the stories that Azusa and Ed told us. So we really thank you very much. We will be following up with Intel brief after the call, and also some of the next steps that I promised but never delivered during this call. We will be following up in writing so that we don't take time of our guests. Thank you so much.
One last thing, we hope to reconvene in mid-November. We'll be having another webinar actually that addresses the question that Tuya was asking. How do we shape safe and inclusive AI for public value? That also has some kind of important ethical considerations. We'll be looking at different AI governance models from across the world, but also specifically in our region. So that's coming up mid-November. You will get an invite soon. And as Alex said, we'll be sharing a brief with the key takeaways from today's session, and including, of course, also the slides that kind of summarize some of the patterns that we've been seeing in the region. Thank you so much, everyone, for a really engaging session, for all your questions. We'll be in touch very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.